And here we are, on the other side of the hellscape that just was the NBA Finals. Mavs fans in 48 other states were rallying behind Dallas, all to conquer the Leprechauns and send Boston fans packing back to their Irish pubs to drown their sorrows with dyed Guinness and baked potatoes. Unfortunately for a large majority of us, Boston has just hung banner number 18. They have officially surpassed the Lakers and now hold the title for most championships ever won in a franchise's history. The Boston Celtics are your 2024 NBA champions, and it really doesn't feel like a good thing for the majority of NBA fans. But enough with the hating. I'm here to talk to you about what this means for the Celtics as a whole, the landscape of the NBA going forward, and how the narrative of this Boston squad is going to change all for the better. I think we should start with the Jaylen Brown respect. It's a little bit of a stretch to say that JB was far and away the best player for the Celtics. It was definitely more of a collective attack. Boston had kind of a mythical aura about them. Just when you think you've got one head under control, two more spring up and take its place. Vanquish one head of the Hydra, and you're staring down an extra set of eyes right after. All this to say, JB clearly led the Celtics to this win, but it wasn't as though he was far and away all that better than Boston's other stars. Jaylen Brown, with still some suspect efficiency and far from anything consistent with the handle, did an amazing job with silencing his haters in this series, and particularly, his defense was something to behold. Not just navigating above the break or dodging screens to stick with his man, but legitimately playing incredibly sound man-to-man defense. I would take it with a pinch of salt, however, JB took the Kyrie assignment more often than not, and forced Kai into the most uncomfortable situations I've seen out of him since 2016. Mr. Irving is the king of tough shot making, and I've seen him hit some bendy, impossible shots time after time, but somehow, Jaylen Brown, of all people, took him out of his element and forced some horrific mistakes down the stretches of some games. All in all, Jaylen Brown walking away with the Bill Russell Finals MVP award was not on my bingo card, but it's something Boston fans are going to be hanging over us for a long time coming. Alright, I'd like to go on record by saying the Tatum hate is way overblown. Games 1 and 2 were by no means excusable for someone who was wearing a superstar status among Boston fans, but he was a far cry from dog shit like some fans would lead you to believe. Despite some not-so-hot shooting nights, Tatum found literally every other way to be impactful on the court for Boston, and I can't give him enough credit for battling through the fact that his shot wasn't falling. He decided to put on his playmaking cap more often than not, with not just a series high of 12 assists in Game 2, but he actually led the finals in assists. Let me be clear. In a series that featured Luka Dončić, Jayson Tatum led the finals in assists. Mull that one over for a bit. Despite all the naysayers and box score watchers, Tatum's presence on both sides of the ball were invaluable. Not to take away from Jaylen Brown, but Tatum's ability to legitimately switch between 1 to 5 is an unsung hallmark of this Boston's defense, considering how many other capable defenders they roll out on a nightly basis. Tatum essentially fluctuated from being the primary Luka stopper to also roaming between guarding Dallas's bigs and wings on the more screen-centric actions Dallas tried to run to free up Luka and Kyrie. I half expected this to be Tatum's series to prove the haters wrong. I expected him to go out, grab his finals MVP, and cement himself in that top 5 conversation. He didn't wrestle the trophy away from JB, but this series did a lot to prove that Tatum isn't just a regular season merchant who coasts along the coattails of a number 1 seeded team. He was a legitimate tandem with JB and was a near equal contributor to banner number 18. If anything, this series showed the evolution Tatum has made and put on full display how many of his bad habits he's legitimately worked on. I guess it's time to give some praise to the Alcatraz Warden and Executioner duo of Jrue Holiday and Derek White. I dare say, they might be the most pestering defensive guard duo I've ever seen, and that's no guff on the historic guys. Derek White and Jrue Holiday acted as both the sword and shield of Boston's defense, the immovable object and unstoppable force. Derek White constantly ran around and threw screens. He denied switches and pestered ball handlers with some extreme precision and aggression. Derek White was a monster to meet at the rim and hit some poetic clutch shots to really encapsulate just how lethal this duo can be. On the flip side, Jrue Holiday was undoubtedly the most steady presence on both ends of the floor, but particularly with his defense on Kyrie. There was an insane amount of possessions where Jrue just did not let Kyrie get going downhill or off of a screen. He would swivel his hips to meet Kyrie at his spot and take away Kyrie's bread and butter of the cross behind the back to a full stop into a jumper. Jrue's court mapping in this series, coupled with Derek White's positional savviness, was something that'll haunt Mavs fans for years to come. This was such a poetic dance of two guys dialed the fuck in. They should rename them to the Yellow Pages because holy fuck, they were taking down numbers and crossing out names all up and down the Mavs depth chart. Let's talk about Tingus Pingus for a second. Despite missing Game 3 and playing supremely limited minutes, Kristaps was still the Celtics' fourth leading scorer. He marginally got beat up by Jrue by like 0.7, and in probably the most important game of his life, in front of the team that traded him because they couldn't make it work with Luka, put on an absolute masterclass. One of the most aura-filled, I am that motherfucker kind of games that was louder than the box score makes it out to be. Kristaps, in a vacuum, is the perfect complementary piece to this Boston offense, and people really tend to forget just how scary he is when he's at the rim. When you try to get a shot up over him, watch the fuck out. Because a healthy Kristaps, I know, big asterisk here, is one of the most springy rim protectors in the league. It seemed to slip some Dallas fans' minds that even with all of the dysfunction that he had on that team, he was still a 20-9 guy who put up almost 2 blocks a game and shot nearly 36% from 3 when he donned the white and blue. This isn't to say that Kristaps was an all-star in Dallas, but he's remembered to be way worse than what he actually did for them. Couple this with the fact that Dallas had zero answer for him in the post. Shout out Lively and Gafford, but one of you has just finished your first rookie season in the NBA, and the other one was never known to be a savvy defender. But Dallas does not have the personnel to guard this Swiss Army knife of a team, and it was clear with just how efficient Kristaps was against everyone on the floor for Dallas. Now it's the time everyone's been waiting for. Let's beat that dead horse. Kick them while they're down, they always say. Let's euthanize the Dallas fan base. For starters, I want to address Jason Kidd. You're obviously not an X's and O's guy. The timeout to kill your team's momentum in Game 3 was hilarious, but you did do everything you could to switch up lineups. If your players aren't hitting shots that they were capable of hitting just one series prior, there's not much you can do as a coach. Then there's the elephant in the room. Kyrie Irving, Uncle Drew, Ankle Taker, World B Flat, Sage of the Smudges and Breaker of Spirits. I'll start by saying that Kai is cursed. He shouldn't have stepped on Lucky. Man, you're never beating Boston ever again. Oh my god. On a serious note though, Kyrie, what the fuck happened, man? You are the tough shot maker and taker, but you were missing the easy ones. Boston's terrifying defense basically took Kyrie out of his comfort zone for the entirety of the series, and it's not like he was forced to take impossibly difficult shots the entire series either. He just couldn't get it to fall. Defensively, there were some more woes. He was never a lockdown defender by any means, but Kyrie played as if this was the same pair of young Jays who were just getting out of their shells in 2017. Boston has come a long way, and Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum are no longer learning how to fly. They're soaring over Kyrie. They lassoed these Mustangs into a Boston corral and retired them from the races permanently. I'll keep it short and sweet on Luka, because I know he listens to these pods. Mr. Dončić, you have got to be better as a leader. The shooting could have been better, and the turnovers needed to be limited, and my God, how were you held to a single assist in Game 1? But all of this, every single one of the antics and the box score stuff, is dwarfed by your attitude and your demeanor on the court. The constant bitching and moaning to the refs on calls and plays that you are 100% in the wrong for. The ridiculous head hanging and emotional lashing out on both teammates and opponents alike. The disgust left in fans' mouths seeing you blatantly give up on defense and try to gimmick yourself into charges to alleviate some of the pressure was deplorable. This isn't going to make sense to everybody, but emotionally, Luka lost Dallas this series. His attitude for Dallas was soul-sucking. It defeated his teammates before games were even over, especially in Game 3, where yes, every single one of those fouls were real, and he did deserve to foul out. All that to say, and I can't believe I'm going to play devil's advocate here, but there's going to be a narrative going around the league about who would even want to play next to Luka, and who is Dallas going to be able to get this offseason, and I'm here to dispel that train of thought before it even begins. A player who can deliver the perfect passes, get you into your most comfortable positions on the court, command the flow of the game to the march of his own drum, and incorporate any offensive weapons into an ever-flowing scheme that doesn't require you to be an offensive creator. Just someone who can hit the shots you're given. Streaky shooters and on-ball creators might not thrive so easily next to Luka, but do you really think, honestly, look me in the eyes and say you don't think guys like Gary Trent Jr., Bruce Brown, Chris Middleton, Malik Monk wouldn't love to be spoon-fed in their spots and rewarded for that extra bit of hustle on fast breaks? Luka is able to get the absolute most of any player who isn't regularly seen as a premier role player. Luka is able to squeeze water out of a stone, if you will. The list of players who would probably love to play next to him is a lot longer than the list of guys who wouldn't. As we end this chapter of the NBA and begin writing the next, we appreciate Boston's 18th banner, but truly wish it was someone else. We hope that Tatum takes the jump we all want him to take, and we hope that this finals loss serves as a valuable reminder to Luka on just how important it is to be a vocal and emotional leader for your team.
I have very urgent work to do.
People